Well, Hearts and Minds. Most investors are familiar with the event. It's a big one on the calendar, but you might not be familiar with the details of the fund, HM1. It's a listed investment company, which last week reported a pre-tax investment return of, get this, 26.1% on an NTA of $750.5 million. The best part, some might say, is that a percentage of returns are passed on to medical research, with fund managers also foregoing their fees and instead donating 1.5% of NTA to charities. To get us across the finer details is CEO Paul Rayson, and he joins me now in studio. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on AusBiz.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So it has been quite the year. We all know that. It sounds to me like HM1 has performed very well through the whole market rout and the volatility that has ensued.
It has. We're very pleased with the performance. And it just shows that the model we've chosen to use with Hearts and Minds is worked well, where we invest in the highest conviction ideas of leading fund managers both here in Australia and internationally. And they've managed through a very tumultuous year to produce a 26% return, which you've got to be pleased with that.
You've got to be pleased with that. So could you talk to us through some of the ideas that have really borne fruit?
Well, the way the investment strategy works, there's two parts to the portfolio. There's a core portfolio where we invest in the highest conviction ideas of some of the most successful fund managers in Australia, and that is Caledonia Investments, Cooper Investors, Magellan, Paradise, Regal and TDM Growth Partners. And that core portfolio we hold for 2 to 3 years. And the other part of the portfolio is what we call the conference portfolio, and that's where we invest in the highest conviction ideas of those fund managers that present at our annual conference, which we hold at the Opera House or in Melbourne, which will be different this year.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. We'll get there.
And we hold those for 12 months. So the format is we're investing the best ideas of those very successful fund managers, and they've managed to navigate through this quite bumpy period and produce what has been an outstanding result, 26% return pre-tax.
It's pretty incredible. So the whole heart of Hearts and Minds is the philanthropic opportunity that it provides regular investors. Yeah. Talk to us about where some of that money has gone.
Well, the reason why this thing works is because all those fund managers donate their stock tip, their expertise and their time for free on a pro bono basis. And that enables Hearts and Minds to have a very low cost base, which gives us the opportunity to donate 1.5% of our net assets every year to medical research beneficiaries. This year, we've already donated $9.3 million to a range of medical research beneficiaries, and they include names like Victor Chang Cardiac Research, the Florey Institute in Melbourne, Neuroscience, Black Dog, Origin, Headspace, Mental Health, the RPA hospital here. So it's across the board, both cardiac, mental health, cognitive decline, and $9 million to medical research, all due to the collaboration and time given by our fund managers. So it's a great combination.
And what has COVID meant on that front? Now, is there a greater need from some of these organizations because there's just so much demand, I suppose, for philanthropic funds in this day and age, or has COVID sort of changed the equation in any way?
We've been talking to our, particularly, Black Dog and Origin Headspace, and the demand for those services has gone up, enormously. COVID is hurting a lot of people, businesses, communities, so the demand for mental health support and youth mental health support has gone up a lot. So the funds that we're providing to those organisations help meet, in a small way, the increased demand for support during these tough times.
It's an incredible time, and that means as well that the Hearts and Minds conference is going to be very different this year, one would presume.
Yes, it is. We had plans to go to Tasmania in Hobart this year, and those plans are on hold for this year for the moment. So this year we'll be holding a virtual conference. It'll be on Friday the 13th of November. And yes, it'll be virtual. Tickets will be $500 and they're still available. But as usual, we'll have some very special keynote speakers who I can't mention right now.
I knew that was going to be the story.
But importantly, we'll still have our range of fund managers who will give their top stock tips for the next year.
Yeah.
And obviously through Hearts and Minds, retail investors can invest in those ideas through the listed investment company. So it should still be great. The interesting thing about having a virtual conference is it gives us the opportunity to get presenters that otherwise may not have been able to travel to Tasmania. So we've got some surprises in store, and I think it'll be fun. And given the performance of the portfolio over the last 2 years, which has been stellar, I'm sure they'll put their minds together and have another great set of picks this year.
And their hearts as well. Just a question, logistics. So what happens with this fund, HM1, when you hold the next conference and then you get new ideas? Is there any sort of a rotation out of old ones to replace the new ones? Like, what's the mandate?
Yeah. So the core portfolio we hold for 2 to 3 years,
yeah.
But the conference portfolio is only held for 12 months. So in November 19, the current portfolio will be disposed in November 2020 this year to make way for the next set of picks.
Right.
So that's the way it works. But the conference portfolio this year has performed amazingly well with some great individual stock tips.
Yeah, good. And if somebody's interested in getting into HM1 or just attending the conference, there's the Hearts and Minds website, presumably.
We have the Hearts and Minds Investments website, and if the conference, the website for the conference is Sohn Hearts and Minds Conference, where you can buy tickets.
And what's your focus right now? Getting that off the ground? And
yes, these virtual things take just as much work as a physical conference. The logistics are just as difficult, and given it's online, we're doing a lot of work in the background for that to occur, and lining up our final keynote speakers.
Good. And I noticed that on the HM1 investment website, there are sort of monthly updates that are provided as well. So it's worthwhile for investors to go there and just kind of get a sense of what's going on in the lead up. Paul, it's been great of you to come in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
really
you
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Paul Rayson, they're joining us from Hearts and Minds.